What happens when an empire that has conquered 1,000 worlds dismisses a single warning from a species they consider primitive? What price do you pay for arrogance when that species happens to be humanity? The NIGMA Empire ruled the galaxy with an iron fist for over 3 millennia. Their crystalline ships swept across star systems like death itself, their quantum weapons reducing entire civilizations to cosmic dust. They had never met a species they couldn't subjugate or destroy. But humanity was different. When the first NIGMA scout ships arrived at the edge of human space, they expected another easy conquest. What they found instead was a species that didn't beg for mercy or offer tribute. Instead, humanity did something the NIGMA had never encountered in their long history of galactic domination. They issued a warning. Not a threat, not a plea. A warning. Leave now and never return. This is your only chance. The NIGMA Empire laughed at such audacity from a species barely capable of interstellar travel. They had plasma cannons that could crack moons, armadas that blotted out suns, and genetic warriors bred for perfect warfare. What could these hairless apes possibly do to them? They were about to find out why humanity had survived every extinction event their home planet had thrown at them. They were about to discover why the species that had crawled from caves to stars a mere millennia was perhaps the most dangerous thing the universe had ever created. The NIGMA Empire ignored humanity's warning. It was the last mistake they would ever make. This is the story of how humanity reminded the galaxy why some warnings should never be ignored, and why underestimating the human spirit is a fatal error that entire civilizations have paid for with their existence. The massive crystalline warship Eternal Dominion drifted through the void like a predator sensing prey. Its hull, forged from quantum-aligned crystal matrices, gleamed with an otherworldly purple light that had become synonymous with death across 1,000 conquered worlds. Admiral Zextar stood before the main viewing portal, his 4 arms clasped behind his chitinous back, watching the yellow star system that lay before them. Another primitive civilization, ripe for harvest. His second-in-command, Commander Vixna, hissed through her respirator. Her compound eyes reflected the starlight as she studied the tactical displays. Initial scans show they call themselves humans. Carbon-based bipeds, single-star system dwellers. They've barely achieved faster-than-light capability. Zextar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among the NIGMA. How refreshingly ordinary. I was beginning to think this outer spiral arm would yield nothing but empty space and cosmic debris. He turned his elongated head toward the communications officer. Have they responded to our standard surrender demand? The communications officer, a younger NIGMA whose carapace still bore the dark blue coloring of youth, looked up nervously from his station. Sir, they have responded, but their message is unusual. Unusual how? Zextar's primary eyes focused on the officer while his secondary pair continued monitoring the tactical displays. They haven't offered tribute or requested mercy terms. Instead, they've sent what appears to be a warning, sir. The bridge fell silent, except for the low hum of the ship's quantum drives. In 3,000 years of conquest, the NIGMA Empire had received countless pleas for mercy, desperate offers of tribute, and elaborate surrender ceremonies. Never once had a species warned them. Display the message, Zextar commanded, his voice carrying the dangerous undertone that preceded the destruction of entire civilizations. The main holographic display flickered to life, showing a human male with graying hair at his temples and eyes that seemed to hold depths the NIGMA couldn't fathom. He wore a simple blue uniform with insignia that marked him as some sort of military leader. I am Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. The human began, her voice steady and clear. I am transmitting this message to whatever passes for leadership aboard your vessel. Zextar's mandibles clicked faster. A female in command? How delightfully primitive. The human continued. We are aware of your empire's history. We know what you've done to other species, other worlds. We've studied the ruins you leave behind. Listened to the final transmissions of civilizations that no longer exist because of your actions. Commander Vixna shifted uncomfortably. Sir, how could they know our history? Our conquest records are classified at the highest levels. The admiral on the screen seemed to look directly at them. Though Zextar knew it was merely a recording. We also know that you've never encountered a species quite like humanity. You've faced being stronger than us, faster than us, more technologically advanced than us. But you've never faced a species that has survived what we have survived. The human's expression didn't change, but something in her voice made the temperature on the bridge seem to drop several degrees. We have survived ice ages that should have killed us. We have survived asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and plagues that wiped out most other life on our world. We have survived because we are stubborn, adaptable, and when cornered, absolutely ruthless. Zextar found himself leaning forward despite his contempt for the primitive species. There was something in the human's tone, a certainty that was almost unsettling. We have survived each other, Admiral Chun continued. We have fought wars that consumed entire continents, created weapons capable of sterilizing our own planet, and somehow managed to pull back from the brink of self-destruction not once, but dozens of times. We learned to cooperate not out of love or enlightenment, but out of the stark realization that the alternative was extinction. The communications officer looked up nervously. Sir, should I prepare our standard conquest protocols? Zextar held up one claw for silence as the human continued speaking. So let me be very clear about what I'm telling you. This is not a threat. This is not a negotiation. This is a warning. Turn your ships around and leave this system immediately. Do not return. Do not send scouts. Do not attempt contact again. Consider this sector of space forbidden to your empire for all time. The absurdity of it struck Zextar like a physical blow. A species that had barely crawled out of their own star system was warning the NIGMA Empire? The same empire that had turned the mighty Zelak Federation into asteroid belts? The empire that had harvested the life force of the entire Korthon collective consciousness? Furthermore, the human continued, we recommend you cease your expansionist activities entirely. Find some distant corner of the galaxy and stay there. The universe is large enough for both of us, but only if you stop murdering every intelligent species you encounter. Commander Vixna's respiratory slits flared with indignation. The audacity of these creatures. Sir, shall I charge the quantum cannons? But Admiral Chun wasn't finished. We know you think we're weak. We know you believe your superior technology makes you invincible. We know you've studied our broadcasts and concluded that we're a fractured, violent species barely worthy of notice. Her expression finally shifted, and for a moment, something predatory flickered in her eyes. You're wrong. The human stood, and the camera followed her to a viewing port that showed Earth hanging in the starfield like a blue jewel. This planet has tried to kill us for millions of years. It has thrown everything at us that nature can devise. We're still here. We didn't just survive, we thrived. We turned every extinction event into an opportunity to become something stronger, something more dangerous. She turned back to face the camera directly. You have conquered many species, but you've never conquered a species that conquered its own world first. You've never faced a species that had to become masters of warfare just to live on their own planet. You've never met humans. The transmission seemed to focus more intently, as if the human could somehow see through the recording to stare directly into Zextar's compound eyes. This is your warning. Your one and only warning. We've spent our entire existence fighting things that wanted to kill us. We've gotten very, very good at it. Admiral Chun stepped closer to the camera. We're not like the other species you've destroyed. We don't have energy shields powered by crystal matrices. We don't have genetics optimized for warfare. We don't have quantum weapons that can crack moons. What we have is something you've never encountered before. The absolute refusal to surrender combined with the creativity born of desperation. The recording continued for another moment in silence. The human admiral simply staring out of the transmission with those unsettling eyes before she spoke again. Leave now. This is the only mercy you will receive from humanity. There will be no second warning, no negotiation, no terms of surrender when we come for you. Because if you ignore this warning, we will come for you. Not just to defend ourselves, but to ensure that you never threaten another innocent species again. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Eternal Dominion in absolute silence. For nearly a full minute, no one moved. Then Zextar began to laugh, a sound like breaking crystal that echoed through the ship's corridors. Soon the entire bridge crew was laughing, their various respiratory systems creating a cacophony of hissing, clicking, and chittering sounds. A warning. Zextar gasped between fits of laughter. These bipedal mammals issued us a warning. He wiped moisture from his primary eyes with the back of one claw. Commander, what is the status of our fleet? Vixna quickly consulted her displays. 12 dreadnoughts, 48 cruisers, 120 destroyers, and 300 support vessels. The 9th Conquest Fleet in its entirety, sir. More than enough to sterilize their entire system. And their defenses? Primitive chemical rockets, kinetic projectiles, and some sort of fusion-based energy weapons. Nothing that could even scratch our hull plating. Their largest vessels appear to be these space stations orbiting their planets. Pitiful, really. Zextar nodded, his humor fading back into the cold calculation that had made him one of the Empire's most successful admirals. Then, we will demonstrate to these humans what happens to species that dare to warn the NIGMA Empire. Prepare the quantum cannons. We'll start with their outer colonies and work our way inward. I want them to watch their civilization die piece by piece. As the crew rushed to carry out his orders, Zextar returned to the viewing portal. The human's words echoed in his mind, but he dismissed them as the desperate bluster of a doomed species. He had heard similar speeches from hundreds of worlds before they fell beneath NIGMA might. Still, something about the human's certainty nagged at him. The way she had spoken about survival, about becoming dangerous through adversity. It was almost as if she believed what she was saying. Sir, the tactical officer called out, we're detecting movement in the asteroid belt. It appears the humans have some sort of mining operations there. Mining operations? Zextar's attention sharpened. What kind of yield are we seeing? Massive, sir. They appear to be extracting materials on an industrial scale that shouldn't be possible with their technology level. And, sir, there's something else. What? Our deep scans are picking up artificial constructs throughout their system. Not just around their inhabited planets, but hidden in asteroid fields, tucked behind moons, even in the outer comet cloud. It's almost like they've fortified their entire solar system. Zextar felt the first faint stirring of unease, but pushed it aside. Irrelevant. No matter how many primitive weapons they deploy, they cannot stand against quantum technology. Begin the attack sequence. The Eternal Dominion and its escort fleet began moving into the system, their crystalline hulls gleaming with barely contained destructive power. As they approached the outer edge of human space, sensors began detecting more anomalies. Sir, we're getting strange readings from their asteroid belt. It's almost like the entire thing is artificial. Artificial how? I'm not certain, sir, but the mass distribution is wrong. And we're detecting massive energy signatures masked by the natural electromagnetic interference from their star. Zextar was about to dismiss these concerns when his communications officer spoke up again. Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the humans. More warnings? Zextar asked with derision. No, sir. This appears to be an obituary. The main display lit up again, showing the same human admiral, still standing in what appeared to be a command center. But now there were other humans visible in the background, all moving with the calm efficiency of a military force preparing for battle. To whatever NIGMA commander is listening to this, Admiral Chen began, by the time you receive this transmission, you will have passed the point of no return. Your fleet will have crossed into our defended space, and our automated systems will have classified you as an active threat to human survival. She paused, and for the first time, her expression showed something that might have been sympathy. What happens next is not personal. It's not revenge, though you certainly deserve it for the countless species you've exterminated. It's simply logistics. You represent a threat to human survival, and we have spent our entire history becoming very, very good at eliminating such threats. The camera pulled back to show a massive display behind her, filled with tactical information that meant nothing to the NIGMA. But the scale was impressive even to alien eyes. You wanted to know what makes humans different? We don't just fight for our own lives. We fight for the lives of every innocent species in the galaxy. We fight not just to survive, but to ensure that bullies like you never threaten anyone ever again. Admiral Chen walked toward the camera again. You could have heeded our warning. You could have chosen to change your ways. Instead, you chose to ignore the advice of a species that has spent millions of years perfecting the art of survival. She stopped directly in front of the transmission device. This is your obituary, Admiral. In approximately 17 minutes, Your empire's 3,000-year reign of terror will begin to end. We hope that whatever species eventually evolves to replace you will be wiser." The transmission cut out. Zextar stared at the empty display for several seconds before his combat instincts overrode his confusion. "All ships, maximum alert. Prepare for immediate evasive action. Scan for..." The universe exploded around them. The first thing that hit the NIGMA fleet wasn't visible on any of their sensors. It wasn't energy weapons or kinetic projectiles. It was something that shouldn't have been possible with human technology: localized spatial distortions that twisted the very fabric of space-time around their ships. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as reality itself seemed to bend around its hull, and Zextar realized that the humans had somehow weaponized gravitational forces on a scale that defied everything he knew about physics. "Shields!" he roared, but his crew was already trying. The NIGMA's quantum barriers flared to life, but they were designed to deflect energy weapons and kinetic impacts, not the fundamental forces of the universe itself. Through the chaos, Zextar caught glimpses of what had been hidden in the asteroid belt. Not mining operations, but construction facilities. Not natural asteroids, but camouflaged weapons platforms larger than NIGMA dreadnoughts. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a fortress, and they had done it with technology that shouldn't have existed. As his ship's hull began to buckle under gravitational stresses that no material could withstand, Admiral Zextar finally understood what the human had been trying to tell him. They had indeed conquered their own world first. And in doing so, they had learned lessons that the NIGMA Empire, for all its technological superiority, had never needed to learn. The lesson of how to fight for survival against impossible odds. The lesson of how to turn desperation into innovation. The lesson of how to make the universe itself into a weapon. As the Eternal Dominion was crushed into a gravitational singularity along with half his fleet, Zextar's final thought was a recognition of the terrible irony. The humans had warned them. They had actually tried to save NIGMA lives. It was more mercy than the NIGMA Empire had ever shown to anyone. News of the Ninth Conquest Fleet's complete destruction reached NIGMA High Command 18 hours after the last ship's emergency beacon went silent. The crystalline spires of the capital world had weathered 3 millennia of victory reports, tributes from conquered species, and the occasional minor setback. Never had they received news quite like this. Emperor Kalthmor stood in the center of the war chamber, his 12-foot frame casting shadows across holographic displays showing the empty space where Admiral Zextar's fleet had simply ceased to exist. His ceremonial armor, forged from the quantum-crystallized remains of the first world the NIGMA had conquered, seemed to absorb the light from the displays. "Explain to me," the Emperor's voice resonated through the chamber like grinding stone, "how an entire conquest fleet vanished without sending a single coherent battle report." High Admiral Texhun, commander of all NIGMA military forces, approached the central platform with careful steps. Her battle-scarred carapace told the story of 1,000 conquered worlds, but now those victories seemed distant and hollow. "Your Imperial Majesty," the emergency beacons activated simultaneously across the entire fleet. "The data we recovered shows massive gravitational anomalies, spatial distortions that our ships couldn't compensate for. It appears the humans deployed weapons that manipulate fundamental forces." Gravitational weapons? Emperor Kalthmor's 4 primary eyes focused on the tactical displays, while his secondary sensors monitored the emotional states of everyone in the chamber. That should be impossible for a species barely capable of interstellar travel. Should be, yes, Your Majesty. But the evidence is undeniable. They turned their entire star system into a weapon. Admiral Texhun activated new holographic displays showing reconstructed data from the fleet's final moments. Our ships were crushed by artificially generated gravitational fields that exceeded the mass density of neutron stars. The Emperor's mandibles clicked in a pattern that made every being in the chamber step backward. It was a sound that had preceded the extermination of entire species. "You're telling me that these humans possess technology superior to our own?" "Not superior, Your Majesty. Different. They appear to have developed along entirely different technological paths than any species we've encountered. While we perfected quantum manipulation and energy projection, they've learned to weaponize the fundamental forces of reality itself. Chief Science Advisor Nextal stepped forward, her normally pristine research robes stained with the chemical residue of sleepless weeks spent analyzing the data. Your Majesty, there's more. Our long-range sensors detected massive energy discharges from the human system after our fleet's destruction. They appear to be building something. Building what? We're not certain, but the energy signatures suggest construction on a massive scale. Whatever they're creating, it's larger than anything in our databases. Larger than our planetary shipyards. Larger than the fortress worlds. If the energy readings are accurate, they're constructing something the size of small moon. Emperor Kalthmore's secondary eyes narrowed as he processed this information. In 3,000 years of conquest, the NIGMA Empire had never encountered a species that responded to invasion by immediately beginning massive construction projects. Usually, they begged for mercy or threw themselves into doomed defensive actions. Perhaps, suggested High Admiral Texan, we should reconsider our approach to this species. They clearly possess capabilities we didn't anticipate. The Emperor's response came as a subsonic rumble that resonated through the chamber's crystal walls. Reconsider? You suggest the NIGMA Empire should negotiate with a species that just destroyed an entire conquest fleet. Your Majesty, I suggest we gather more intelligence before committing additional forces. We don't understand their capabilities, their numbers, or their intentions. Their intentions? The Emperor's laugh was like the sound of worlds cracking. They warned us to cease our expansion entirely. They've declared themselves the galaxy's new police force. Their intentions are clear enough. He activated the chamber's main display, showing a galaxy-wide strategic map marked with 3,000 years of NIGMA conquests. Red markers indicated subjugated systems, purple showed ongoing operations, and a single yellow marker in the outer spiral arm marked human space. Look at this, Admiral. Look at what we've built. The greatest empire in galactic history, spanning 40,000 star systems, controlling the destinies of billions of species. And you suggest we should reconsider our expansion because one primitive species got lucky with some exotic weapons. Chief Science Advisor Nextal cleared her throat nervously. Your Majesty, with respect, I'm not certain it was luck. The precision required to generate those gravitational fields suggests a deep understanding of physics that we may have overlooked. The humans might be primitive in some ways, but they appear to be masters of applied gravitational science. Then, we'll learn from their corpses, the Emperor declared. Admiral Texan, how many fleets can you marshal within one standard cycle? Your Majesty, surely we should. How many fleets? The High Admiral consulted her tactical displays. 3 full conquest fleets, 5 rapid assault formations, and the 2nd Annihilation Squadron. Approximately 2,000 ships total. Deploy them all. I want that yellow star extinguished and every human in the galaxy reduced to cosmic dust. No prisioneros. No studis pasimans. No territorial integration. Complete extermination. Nextal stepped forward again, her scientific curiosity overriding her survival instincts. Your Majesty, we could learn so much from studying their gravitational technology. If we could reverse engineer their weapons, their technology died with them when they chose to threaten us. The Emperor cut her off. The NIGMA Empire does not steal scraps from inferior species. We conquer through superior evolution, not by copying the desperate innovations of the doomed. As the War Council dispersed to carry out the Emperor's commands, none of them noticed the small crystalline device hidden in the chamber's ornamental fixtures. A device that had been recording every word, every strategic decision, every troop movement order. A device that began transmitting its data to a location 73 light-years away. In the Sol system, Admiral Sarachun stood before a holographic display showing the NIGMA capital world in perfect detail. Every building, every defensive installation, every strategic asset was mapped with precision that should have been impossible from such a distance. How long have we been monitoring their command structure? She asked her intelligence chief. Ever since we detected their first scouts 3 months ago, Commander Jackson replied. We've had quantum entanglement surveillance devices on every major NIGMA installation for the past 6 weeks. We know their fleet dispositions, their tactical doctrines, their political structure, even their supply lines. Admiral Chen nodded, studying the tactical displays that showed NIGMA forces mobilizing across dozens of star systems. They're sending everything they have. 2,000 ships. Are you concerned, Admiral? Asked Dr. Elizabeth Reyes, the chief scientist of the Human Defense Initiative. Our gravitational mines destroyed their first fleet completely, but 2,000 ships is an enormous force. Chen smiled, and it wasn't a reassuring expression. Dr. Reyes, they're making the same mistake every predator species makes when they first encounter humans. They're assuming that our initial defense was the limit of our capabilities. She activated new displays showing construction taking place throughout human space. Not just in the Sol system, but in the hidden colonies that the NIGMA didn't know existed, in asteroid mining facilities that were actually weapons laboratories, in deep space installations that masqueraded as scientific research stations. The gravitational mines were just a test, Chen explained. We needed to see how their technology would respond to localized space-time distortions. Now we know their shields can't compensate for gravitational manipulation, and their hull materials fail catastrophically under intense spatial stress. Commander Jackson pulled up fleet readiness reports. Admiral, our forces are nothing like theirs. We have maybe 300 ships total, and most of those are converted civilian vessels. Numbers aren't everything, Commander. The NIGMA Empire has spent 3,000 years fighting species that play by the same rules they do. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, shield technology. They've never faced an opponent that treats the laws of physics as suggestions rather than limitations. Dr. Reyes activated her research displays. The new weapon systems are ready for deployment. Project Prometheus is fully operational. Project Atlas has exceeded all performance projections. And Project Pandora. She paused. Project Pandora is probably the most dangerous thing humanity has ever created. Define dangerous, Chen asked. It could potentially destroy the entire galaxy if we lose control of it. Admiral Chen considered this for a moment. And if we don't use it, the NIGMA Empire will definitely destroy every human world and probably every other intelligent species in the galaxy. Then we use it. As her staff continued coordinating humanity's defense, Admiral Chen walked to the observation deck and looked out at Earth hanging in space. The planet that had tried to kill humanity for millions of years, that had forced them to become masters of survival, that had taught them the most important lesson any species could learn. Sometimes, the only way to protect what you love is to become more dangerous than the things trying to destroy it. The NIGMA Empire was about to learn why humanity had earned the right to exist by surviving everything the universe could throw at them. They were about to discover what happened when you threatened a species that had turned survival into an art form. Across human space, hidden installations came online. Weapons that existed at the edge of theoretical physics powered up for the first time. Technologies that could crack planets, stop time, or turn entire star systems into weapons prepared for deployment. The NIGMA Empire thought they were hunting humans. They were wrong. Humanity was hunting them. Admiral Chen activated the fleet-wide communication system, her voice reaching every human ship, station, and colony in known space. This is Admiral Chen. NIGMA forces are en route to our position in overwhelming numbers. They believe they're coming to exterminate a primitive species that got lucky once. They have no idea what they're actually flying into. She paused, looking out at the stars where her ancestors had dreamed of exploring peacefully. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. Not just our survival, but our right to exist in a universe free from genocidal empires. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every species the NIGMA has murdered and every species they might murder in the future. Her voice hardened with resolve that had been forged in the fires of human history. We are not just defending our worlds today. We are ending the NIGMA Empire forever. They wanted to see what humans are capable of when we're threatened. Admiral Chen smiled with the confidence of a species that had conquered death itself. They're about to find out. The NIGMA Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system like a crystalline constellation of death. 2,000 ships arranged in perfect battle formation, their quantum-aligned hulls gleaming with malevolent energy. High Admiral Texan stood aboard the command dreadnought Galactic Dominion, studying tactical displays that showed what appeared to be a nearly defenseless system. Sensors report minimal defensive installations, her tactical officer announced. We're detecting approximately 300 human vessels, most appearing to be converted civilian craft. No significant orbital fortifications around their primary world. Texan's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Perhaps the Emperor's overwhelming response had been unnecessary after all. What about the gravitational anomalies that destroyed the Ninth Fleet? We're detecting residual distortions in the asteroid belt, but nothing active. It appears their weapons require significant preparation time or have limited ammunition. Or they're waiting for us to come to them, Texan muttered, remembering the human admiral's unsettling confidence. Deploy long-range sensor probes throughout the system. I want to know about every piece of debris larger than a pebble. As the NIGMA fleet advanced into the system, the sensor probes spread out like a crystalline net, scanning for hidden weapons platforms or defensive installations. What they found instead defied every conventional understanding of military strategy. Admiral, the science officer called out, her voice strained with confusion. We're detecting massive construction projects throughout the system, but they're not defensive installations. What kind of construction? They appear to be research facilities. Massive ones. The energy signature suggests they're conducting experiments on a scale that should be impossible for any single star system. Texan moved to the science station, studying displays that showed structures hidden throughout human space. Not weapons platforms or fortress worlds, but laboratories. Laboratories the size of moons, hidden in asteroid fields and tucked behind planets. What kind of research requires facilities this large? Unknown, Admiral. But the energy readings suggest they're manipulating matter at the quantum level, generating artificial gravitational fields, and, Admiral, some of these readings don't make sense. They appear to be experimenting with the fundamental constants of physics. A chill ran down Texan's chitinous spine. The fundamental constants were the unchangeable laws that governed reality itself. The speed of light, the strength of gravity, the electromagnetic force. They were as constant as existence itself. That's impossible, she stated flatly. Yes, Admiral. It should be. Before Texan could process this information further, her communications officer reported an incoming transmission from the human fleet. Display it, she commanded. The main holographic projector activated, showing the same human admiral who had issued the original warning. But now she stood in what appeared to be a laboratory rather than a military command center. Behind her, massive displays showed equations and diagrams that hurt to look at directly. Welcome to the Sol System, Admiral Chen began. I'm broadcasting this message to give you one final opportunity to withdraw your forces and spare your crew's lives. Texan's respiratory slits flared with indignation. Even now, facing an armada of 2,000 ships, the human had the audacity to offer mercy to the NIGMA Empire. You're wondering about our research facilities, Chen continued, as if she could read Texan's thoughts. You're probably trying to understand what we've been building out here. The answer is simple. We've been solving problems. The human admiral stepped aside, revealing a display showing what appeared to be a star. But something was wrong with it. The star's fusion processes were running backward, converting helium back into hydrogen, growing younger instead of older. Problem number 1. Your empire has been committing genocide for 3,000 years. Traditional military responses would result in millions of casualties on both sides, and leave the galaxy devastated even if we won. So we developed a non-traditional solution. The display changed to show a NIGMA world, but the image was distorted, as if viewed through warped glass. We learned how to manipulate the fundamental forces that govern reality. Not just gravity, which you've already experienced, but all of them. The strong nuclear force, the electromagnetic force, even quantum mechanics itself. Texan felt her command crew shifting nervously around her. What the human was describing should be impossible, but the evidence of their gravitational weapons was undeniable. Problem number 2. Your empire is too large to defeat through conventional warfare. 40,000 star systems, billions of ships, trillions of soldiers. Even if we could match you ship for ship, the war would last millennia. So we developed a way to fight your entire empire simultaneously. The display now showed a map of NIGMA space, but it was changing. Stars were moving, systems were disappearing, entire sectors were shifting as if the galaxy itself was being rewritten. You see, Admiral, your empire made a fundamental error in judgment. You assumed that because we're primitive in some ways, we must be primitive in all ways. You never consider that a species might develop advanced physics while keeping simple spacecraft. You never imagined that we might master the universe itself while living on a single world. Admiral Chen walked closer to the camera, and her expression showed something that made every NIGMA on the bridge step backward instinctively. We spent our entire evolutionary history learning how to survive impossible situations. Do you know what the most important survival skill is, Admiral? It's not strength or speed or advanced weapons. It's the ability to change the rules of the game when the existing rules guarantee your defeat. The transmission shifted to show what appeared to be a human child working at a holographic display. The child was manipulating equations that described the fundamental nature of space and time as easily as arranging toys. We taught our children to think outside the boundaries that limit other species. While you were perfecting quantum crystals and energy weapons, we were teaching 8-year-olds to treat the laws of physics as optimization problems. While you were conquering worlds, we were learning to conquer reality itself. Texan found her voice. You're bluffing. No species can manipulate the fundamental forces without destroying themselves. Admiral Chen smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Texan had ever seen. You're right, Admiral. Most species would destroy themselves trying to do what we've done. But most species didn't spend 4 billion years surviving on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them. Most species didn't develop redundant safety protocols for literally everything because their world taught them that a single mistake meant extinction. The display behind her showed Earth, but now it was surrounded by structures that defied description. Rings of energy that twisted space-time itself, platforms that existed partially outside normal space, installations that seemed to be built from crystallized mathematics. We turned our entire solar system into a laboratory for experimental physics. Every asteroid, every moon, every cubic kilometer of space is monitored and controlled. We've been conducting experiments that would terrify most civilizations, but we've been doing them safely because we learned how to build safety margins into the fabric of reality itself. Texan's tactical officer spoke up nervously. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout their system. Whatever they're powering up, it's drawing energy on the scale of stellar output. Problem number 3, Admiral Chun continued, is that your empire will never stop. Even if we destroyed your current fleet, you'd just send more ships. Even if we devastated your military, you'd rebuild. Even if we conquered your capital world, other NIGMA colonies would continue the war. So we developed a solution that addresses the root cause. The display now showed something that made Texan's compound eyes widen in disbelief. It was a map of NIGMA space, but every single NIGMA world was highlighted. Not just military bases or shipyards, but every planet, every station, every asteroid mining facility. We're going to give your entire empire a choice, Admiral. Every NIGMA world, simultaneously. Change or die. Impossible, Texan whispered. You can't threaten 40,000 star systems from a single location. You're thinking in terms of traditional weapons, Admiral. Energy beams that travel at light speed, kinetic projectiles that take years to cross interstellar space. But we're not using traditional weapons. Admiral Chun gestured to her displays, which now showed equations that seemed to writhe and shift as they were observed. We're using physics itself. Did you know that quantum entanglement isn't bound by distance? Did you know that properly manipulated gravitational fields can propagate faster than light? Did you know that the fundamental constants that govern reality can be adjusted under certain circumstances? The human smile became predatory. We've placed quantum-entangled devices throughout your empire. Devices that look like natural phenomena, hidden in asteroid belts and stellar coronas and planetary rings. Devices that are all connected to our installations here in Sol System. Texan felt her world tilting. You're saying you can attack our entire empire from here? Instantaneously? Not attack, Admiral. Transform. The display showed molecular diagrams that were changing in real time. We can alter the fundamental forces that hold your technology together. We can change the electromagnetic constants that power your ships. We can adjust the strong nuclear force that stabilizes your weapons. Admiral Chen's expression became almost sympathetic. We can turn your entire empire's technology into inert matter in approximately 17 minutes. Every ship, every weapon, every quantum crystal, every piece of advanced technology you've built over 3,000 years of conquest. All of it becomes harmless debris floating in space. The implications hit Texan like a physical blow. Without their technology, the NIGMA Empire would collapse overnight. Trillions of beings would be stranded on dead ships in the void. Entire worlds would lose life support systems. "You're talking about genocide on a galactic scale," she managed to say. "No," I admitted. "We're talking about disarmament on a galactic scale. Your people would survive, but your ability to commit genocide would be permanently removed." The human's tone became almost gentle. "We told you we weren't like the other species you've destroyed. We don't want to rule the galaxy or extract tribute or build an empire. We just want genocidal maniacs to stop murdering innocent people." Admiral Chun stepped closer to the transmission device. "So here's what's going to happen. You have exactly 10 minutes to order all NIGMA forces to stand down permanently, recall all conquest fleets, and begin the process of granting independence to every species you've subjugated. If you do this, your people live and your technology remains functional, but your empire ends." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "If you refuse, we activate our quantum disruption network and turn every piece of NIGMA technology in the galaxy into scrap metal. Your ships die, your weapons fail, your life support systems stop working, and your 3,000-year empire ends in 17 minutes. The transmission began to fade, but Admiral Chen's voice remained clear. "We gave you a warning, Admiral. We told you to leave and never return. You chose to bring the largest armada in galactic history to exterminate us instead. Now you get to choose whether your empire dies today or transforms into something that doesn't murder entire species for sport." The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge of the galactic dominion in absolute silence. Texan stared at the empty display, her mind reeling. Around her, the command crew waited for orders, but what orders could she give? How do you fight an enemy that can rewrite the laws of physics? How do you defeat a species that had turned the universe itself into a weapon? "Admiral," her communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving similar transmissions on all frequencies throughout NIGMA space. Every world, every fleet, every installation is getting the same message simultaneously." Texan nodded numbly. Of course they were. The humans had just demonstrated the ability to communicate instantaneously across galactic distances. Why wouldn't they be able to threaten every NIGMA world at once? "Time remaining?" she asked. 8 minutes, 37 seconds until their deadline. Admiral Texan looked around the bridge at her crew, then out at the 2,000 ships of her armada, then at the displays showing the vast NIGMA empire that had taken 3 millennia to build. All of it could be gone in less than 9 minutes. Because they had ignored a species that had learned to survive by changing the rules when survival seemed impossible. Because they had dismissed the warnings of a species that had mastered the art of making the impossible happen when extinction was the alternative. Because they had threatened humanity. And humanity, it turned out, didn't just fight back. They fought back with the fury of a species that had conquered the universe itself. In the crystalline halls of the NIGMA capital world, Emperor Kalthmore stood before the Emergency Council as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Every NIGMA world was receiving the same impossible ultimatum. Every fleet commander was requesting orders. Every colonial governor was demanding answers that no one possessed. "Your Imperial Majesty," Chief Science Advisor Nextdow approached with data tablets that trembled in her claws. "I've completed the analysis of the human transmission. The quantum signatures are unprecedented." The Emperor's massive form cast shadows across the council chamber as he turned his attention to her. "Meaning, they're not bluffing, Your Majesty. The energy readings we're detecting from their system indicate they actually possess the capability to execute their threat. They've somehow created quantum-entangled devices throughout our empire and connected them to a central control system. How is this possible without our knowledge?" Nextdow activated holographic displays, showing NIGMA space dotted with millions of seemingly natural phenomena. These quantum devices masqueraded as cosmic debris, stellar phenomena, or gravitational anomalies. Our sensors classified them as background cosmic objects because they appear to be made of naturally occurring materials. but they're actually sophisticated quantum manipulation devices disguised to look like space rocks. Defense Minister Kextal stepped forward, his battle armor scarred from 1,000 campaigns. Your Majesty, even if their threat is real, we cannot capitulate to these primitives. The NIGMA Empire has never surrendered to anyone. And if they carry out their threat, then we fight them with conventional weapons. Swords if necessary. The NIGMA spirit cannot be broken by technological tricks. Emperor Kalthmore's mandibles clicked thoughtfully as he studied the strategic displays. 5 minutes remained until the human deadline. Across the galaxy, NIGMA forces waited for orders while human installations powered up weapons that could rewrite the fundamental laws of physics. Your Majesty, Intelligence Director Yexnor spoke from her position near the communication arrays. We're receiving additional intelligence from our deep space monitoring stations. The humans aren't just threatening our empire. They're broadcasting their ultimatum to every intelligent species in the galaxy. What? The main display activated, showing intercepted transmissions being received by dozens of different alien civilizations. The same human admiral who had threatened the NIGMA Empire was now addressing the entire galaxy. Attention, all sentient species. Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the chamber. This message is being broadcast to every world capable of receiving interstellar communications. Today marks the end of the NIGMA Empire's 3,000-year reign of terror. The display showed footage of NIGMA conquest fleets destroying worlds, harvesting populations, and reducing entire civilizations to cosmic dust. It was a montage of the Empire's greatest victories, but presented as evidence of galactic-scale genocide. For too long, the galaxy has lived in fear of these genocidal tyrants. Today, humanity offers every enslaved species the chance for freedom, and every free species the promise that they will never again face NIGMA aggression. Emperor Kalthmore felt a cold realization settling over him. The humans weren't just threatening the NIGMA Empire. They were positioning themselves as liberators of the galaxy, turning every subjugated species into potential allies and every free civilization into supporters of their cause. In approximately 4 minutes, Admiral Chen continued, we will demonstrate that technological superiority without moral authority is worthless. We will show the galaxy that no empire, no matter how powerful, is immune to justice when that justice is backed by the laws of physics themselves. Intelligence Director Yexnor looked up from her displays with an expression of dawning horror. Your Majesty, our communication networks are being flooded with transmissions from subjugated species. They're celebrating. Celebrating? Every world we've conquered, every species we've enslaved, every population we've reduced to labor forces. They're all receiving the human broadcast and preparing for independence. They think they're about to be freed. The Emperor's 4 primary eyes narrowed as the true scope of the human strategy became clear. This wasn't just about destroying NIGMA technology. It was about dismantling the Empire's ability to maintain control over 40,000 star systems simultaneously. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining, announced the chronometer technician. Defense Minister Kextal stepped forward again. Your Majesty, we must call their bluff. If we surrender to these humans, it sets a precedent that any species can threaten the NIGMA Empire and expect us to capitulate. And if we don't surrender, then we rebuild. The NIGMA spirit has survived worse catastrophes. Chief Science Advisor Nextal interjected nervously. Your Majesty, with respect, the Defense Minister may be underestimating the scope of the threat. If the humans disable all our technology simultaneously, we won't just lose our military capabilities. We'll lose life support on millions of ships, orbital stations, and artificial environments. The immediate casualties could number in the hundreds of billions. Acceptable losses, Kextal declared. The NIGMA Empire has sacrificed billions before to maintain our dominance. But never our own billions, Nextal shot back. And never with no guarantee of eventual victory. Emperor Kalthmore listened to the debate with growing unease. 3,000 years of absolute dominance had not prepared the NIGMA Empire for an opponent who could threaten their existence from a single star system. Every strategic doctrine, every tactical manual, every military tradition was useless against an enemy who had weaponized reality itself. 2 minutes remaining, The chronometer announced. The Emperor activated his personal communication array, opening a direct channel to High Admiral Texan's fleet. Admiral, what is your assessment of the human capabilities? Texan's image appeared on the display, her command bridge visible behind her. Your Majesty, I've witnessed their gravitational weapons firsthand. They completely destroyed Admiral Zextar's fleet using technology that defies our understanding of physics. If they claim they could disable our entire empire simultaneously, I believe them. And your recommendation? The High Admiral was silent for several seconds. Around her, the bridge crew of the Galactic Dominion waited with the same tension that gripped the capital world. Your Majesty, for 3,000 years, the NIGMA Empire has been the apex predator of the galaxy. We've conquered every species we've encountered because we were stronger, faster, and more technologically advanced. But these humans, there's something different. The Emperor's mandibles clicked impatiently. Explain. They're not trying to become the dominant species, Your Majesty. They're not seeking to build their own empire or extract tribute from conquered worlds. They're trying to eliminate the concept of galactic conquest entirely. They're not playing the same game we're playing. They've changed the rules so that the game itself becomes impossible. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. Intelligence Director Yexnor spoke up again. Your Majesty, we're receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations. The human installations are reaching critical energy levels. Whatever they're planning to do, they're preparing to do it. The Emperor looked around the chamber at the faces of his advisors, his military commanders, his scientific experts. Every one of them showed the same expression, uncertainty. For the first time in NIGMA history, they faced an opponent they didn't understand fighting a war they didn't recognize using weapons that shouldn't exist. Your Majesty, Defense Minister Kextal said desperately, if we surrender now, the NIGMA Empire ends. 3,000 years of conquest, 3,000 years of dominance, reduced to nothing by a single species that emerged from nowhere. And if we don't surrender? Chief Science Advisor Nextal answered quietly. Then the NIGMA Empire ends anyway, but with the deaths of trillions of our people. 45 seconds remaining. Emperor Kalf Moore closed his eyes and considered the impossible choice. Surrender meant the end of everything the NIGMA Empire had built. Resistance meant the death of everything the NIGMA Empire had become. Around him, the command chamber fell silent except for the steady countdown. 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds. The Emperor opened his eyes and looked out at the galaxy his empire had dominated for 3 millennia. At the millions of worlds that bowed to NIGMA authority. At the countless species that lived in terror of crystalline ships and quantum weapons. At the empire he was about to either surrender or watch die. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2. Emperor Kalfmore activated his communication array and spoke the words that would end the NIGMA Empire forever. Attention all NIGMA forces. By imperial decree, effective immediately, all military operations are suspended. All conquest fleets will return to their home ports. All subjugated species are hereby granted immediate independence. The chamber erupted in shocked protests from his advisors, but the Emperor continued speaking. The NIGMA Empire formally surrenders to humanity and accepts their terms unconditionally. All imperial forces will stand down and await further instructions from human representatives. He closed the communication channel and turned to face his council. The choice was simple. We could die as an empire today or live to become something else tomorrow. Defense Minister Kextal's respirator hissed with indignation. Your Majesty, you've just destroyed everything our ancestors built. No, the Emperor replied quietly. I've just saved everything our ancestors were. On the bridge of the Galactic Dominion, High Admiral Texan watched her tactical displays as the countdown reached 0. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, acknowledgement signals began appearing from NIGMA forces throughout the galaxy. Fleet after fleet reporting compliance with surrender orders. World after world confirming the ceasefire. The largest empire in galactic history laying down its arms in response to an ultimatum from a species they had never even heard of 6 months ago. In the Sol system, Admiral Sarachon stood before her displays watching the NIGMA Empire's surrender signals flooding in from across the galaxy. Around her, The human command staff worked with quiet efficiency to coordinate the peaceful transition that would follow. Admiral, Dr. Reyes approached with a data tablet. The quantum disruption network is still fully charged and operational. What are your orders? Chun studied the tactical displays showing NIGMA forces throughout the galaxy standing down, their weapons powered off, their ships returning to port. Power down the network. We won't be needing it. Ma'am, they chose survival over pride, Dr. Reyes. That's the first intelligent choice the NIGMA Empire has made in 3,000 years. She turned to address her command staff. Begin implementing the transition protocols. Coordinate with resistance groups on formerly occupied worlds. Start establishing the new Galactic Council framework. As her staff rushed to carry out orders that would reshape the galaxy, Admiral Chun walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. For 3,000 years, those stars had hidden in terror from purple ships and quantum weapons. For 3,000 years, entire civilizations had lived in fear of the crystalline death that came from deep space. Today, that fear ended, not through conquest or domination, but through the simple demonstration that some species refuse to be intimidated by bullies, no matter how powerful those bullies believe themselves to be. The NIGMA Empire had learned what every predator eventually discovers. There's always something higher on the food chain. And sometimes that's something used to live on a small blue planet that had spent 4 billion years teaching its children how to survive the impossible. 1 year after the surrender of the NIGMA Empire, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Former Emperor Kalthmore stood on the observation deck of the space station New Harmony, watching ships from dozens of species dock with a massive structure that had become the seat of the Galactic Council. Where once purple crystalline warships had carried death between the stars, now vessels of every conceivable design transported diplomats, scientists, and traders working to build something the galaxy had never seen before: true peace. The humans are requesting another meeting, his aide informed him. The aide was a young NIGMA who had never known the Empire at its height, who had grown up in the new galaxy where his species was known for scientific achievement rather than genocide. Kalthmore nodded, adjusting his simple robes. Gone was the ceremonial armor forged from the remains of conquered worlds. Gone were the symbols of absolute dominance. The former emperor now served as the NIGMA representative to the Galactic Council, working to help his species find a new purpose in a universe that no longer feared them. In the council chamber, Admiral Sarek Chun waited with the patient expression that had become her trademark. Around the massive circular table sat representatives from over 200 species, including dozens that had been freed from NIGMA rule and others that had emerged from hiding once the threat of conquest was removed. Thank you for coming, Admiral Chun began as the former emperor took his seat. We have several items to discuss regarding the ongoing transition. Kalthmore listened as Chun outlined progress reports from across the galaxy. Former NIGMA military bases had been converted into research stations. Conquered worlds were rebuilding their civilizations with assistance from the new Galactic Development Fund. The massive NIGMA fleet was being repurposed for exploration and scientific research rather than conquest. The most significant development, Chun continued, is the success of the integration protocol. Former NIGMA military personnel have successfully transitioned to civilian roles throughout the galaxy. Your species' natural strategic thinking and organizational skills have proven invaluable in coordinating relief efforts on liberated worlds. It was true, though it still amazed Kalthmore. The same abilities that had made the NIGMA Empire efficient conquerors had made them excellent administrators and coordinators when applied to peaceful purposes. Former admirals now manage supply lines for humanitarian missions. Former generals coordinated reconstruction efforts on war-torn worlds. However, Chen's tone became more serious. We've detected concerning developments in the outer spiral arm. The main display activated, showing a star map with red markers indicating unknown contacts. 3 species have emerged from the galactic rim, apparently drawn by the collapse of NIGMA authority. Early reports suggest they may be attempting to fill the power vacuum left by your empire's surrender. Kalthmore felt his respiratory slits tighten. Are they following NIGMA tactics? Worse, they appear to be following pre-NIGMA tactics. Complete extermination of intelligent life, harvesting of planetary resources, no territorial integration or population management. They're not building an empire. They're conducting a galactic cleansing operation. Representative ZYXL from the former Zelac Federation leaned forward. Admiral Chun, what are humanity's intentions regarding these new threats? Chun was quiet for a moment, studying the tactical displays. Around the table, representatives from dozens of species waited for her answer. The question that everyone had been wondering since the NIGMA surrender. Would humanity become the galaxy's new protector, or would they return to their single system and leave everyone else to fend for themselves? The Galactic Council will address these threats collectively, Chen finally answered. Humanity will contribute our capabilities, but we won't be leading a new empire of conquest disguised as protection. The galaxy has had enough of single-species dominance. She activated new displays showing fleet compositions and defensive strategies. The Council Defense Force will include ships and personnel from every member species. Former NIGMA vessels will serve alongside human exploration ships, Zelac science vessels, and craft from dozens of other civilizations. Kalthmore studied the tactical projections. Admiral, with respect, these new threats appear to possess technology comparable to what the NIGMA Empire developed. Our combined forces may not be sufficient. Chun smiled, and it was an expression the former emperor had learned to recognize. It was the look humans got when someone assumed they had revealed all their capabilities. Former Emperor, did you really think that the gravitational weapons and quantum disruption networks we demonstrated during your empire's surrender represented the limit of human technological development? She activated new displays showing research facilities throughout human space. Not the installations that had forced the NIGMA surrender, but entirely new constructs that defied description. We've been preparing for the possibility that other aggressive species might emerge once the NIGMA Empire was no longer suppressing them. The weapons we used against you were our first-generation defensive systems. We're now deploying technology that makes gravitational manipulation look primitive. Dr. Elizabeth Reyes, now serving as humanity's chief scientific representative to the Council, stepped forward. We've developed the ability to manipulate causality itself. Weapons that can prevent hostile actions from ever occurring. Defensive systems that exist outside normal spacetime. Technologies that can quarantine entire star systems in pocket dimensions if necessary. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just defeated the NIGMA Empire. They had been preparing for threats that hadn't even revealed themselves yet. However, Admiral Chun continued, these weapons will only be used if the Council collectively authorizes their deployment. Humanity will not unilaterally decide the fate of galactic civilizations, no matter how hostile they may be. Representative Korthak from a Mantid Collective clicked his approval, a refreshing change from the previous 3,000 years. Indeed, agreed Representative Veltar from the Crystal Singers. The humans continue to demonstrate wisdom beyond their apparent age as a spacefaring species. Kalthmore found himself speaking before he realized it. Admiral, may I ask a question that has troubled me since our surrender? Of course. Why? Your species could have destroyed us, enslaved us, or taken our place as galactic dominators. Instead, you've helped us rebuild, integrated us into your new council, and treated us as equals despite our history. Why show such mercy to a species that threatened your extinction? Admiral Chun was quiet for a long moment, looking out through the chamber's viewing ports at the diverse fleet of ships docked with the station. Former Emperor, humanity learned long ago that survival isn't about being the strongest or most dominant species. It's about building systems that can survive anything the universe throws at them. She gestured toward the displays showing the new galactic civilization taking shape. A galaxy where one species dominates all others is fragile. It depends on that single species never making a mistake, never becoming corrupt, never falling to internal conflict. The NIGMA Empire lasted 3,000 years, which is impressive, but it was always destined to fall eventually. And your alternative? A galaxy where dozens of species work together, where no single civilization can threaten all the others, where knowledge and resources are shared rather than hoarded. That's a system that can last millions of years and survive threats that would destroy any empire. Dr. Reyes added, we also learned that former enemies often make the most valuable allies. The NIGMA Empire's organizational skills and strategic thinking have been crucial to the success of the transition. Your species understands galactic-scale logistics in ways that most civilizations never develop. Koltmur nodded slowly. It was true that his people's military heritage had translated surprisingly well to peaceful coordination efforts. Former NIGMA officers had become essential to managing the complex process of liberating and rebuilding thousands of worlds simultaneously. Furthermore, Chun continued, humanity has no desire to rule a galaxy. We're explorers and researchers at heart. We want to push the boundaries of what's possible, not manage the daily administration of 40,000 star systems. The meeting continued for several hours, covering everything from trade agreements to joint research projects to the integration of newly discovered species. By the time the council adjourned, the galaxy's response to the new threats had been outlined and approved. As the representatives dispersed to their various ships and quarters, Kolthmore found himself walking with Admiral Chun toward the station's central observation deck. Admiral, one more question, if I may. Go ahead. The warning you gave us before we invaded your system. You genuinely tried to save our lives, didn't you? Chun stopped walking and turned to face him directly. Former Emperor, humanity has seen enough death. We've witnessed enough extinction. We've survived enough catastrophes. If there's a way to solve a problem without killing anyone, we'll take it, no matter how much more difficult it makes things for us. They stood together in the observation lounge, looking out at the bustling traffic of the galaxy's new capital station. Ships from dozens of species worked together in ways that would have been unthinkable just 1 year ago. Do you think it will work? Kolthmore asked. This new galaxy you're building? Admiral Chun considered the question while watching a former NIGMA research vessel docking alongside a human exploration ship, their crews working together to unload supplies for refugee colonies. I think it's our best chance, she finally answered. The alternative is what the galaxy has always been, a place where the strongest survive by destroying everyone else. Humanity has never accepted that survival requires cruelty. We've always believed that the strongest survive by helping everyone else become stronger. In the distance, new ships were arriving at the station. Not warships or conquest fleets, but vessels filled with scientists, diplomats, and explorers working to build something the galaxy had never seen before. A civilization based on cooperation rather than domination. Besides, Chen added with a slight smile, if this new system doesn't work, we'll change the rules again until we find something that does. That's what humans do. We keep trying until we find a solution that lets everyone survive. Kolthmore looked out at the stars, remembering when they had been the domain of purple ships carrying death between worlds. Now, they belonged to everyone, and for the first time in his long life, he believed they always would. The NIGMA Empire had ignored humanity's warning and paid the price for their arrogance. But they had also learned something more valuable than dominance. They had learned what it meant to be part of something larger than themselves. They had learned what it meant to be part of the galaxy where warnings were given out of mercy rather than weakness. And they had learned why humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to destroy their enemies, but their determination to turn enemies into allies. The galaxy was no longer a place where the strong devoured the weak. It was a place where everyone, strong and weak alike, worked together to become something stronger than any single species could ever be alone. It was the galaxy that humanity had dreamed of when they first looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there. And it was the galaxy they had been willing to fight the universe itself to create.